How do I nurture myself so that I can withstand stress and pressure? That stress and pressure will come, but it's about learning the power of mindfulness and focus exercising, sleeping, exercising, eating healthy, because I need my body to withstand that pressure, right? And finally, K, knowing your goals. And here, I would advocate focusing on behavior goals rather than outcome goals. Many people think of outcome goals, right? Like, I need to raise this amount of money. I need to lose weight. I need to save enough for a down payment. Those are outcomes. But that's also why most New Year resolutions fail by February or March. Instead, founders should focus on behavior goals. What am I doing today? What am I doing this week? Right? It's the behaviors that we do which will shape the outcome.
Welcome to the iSearch podcast. Today we have Azran, the CEO and co-founder of Naluri, on the show. So Naluri is a digital health solution for physical and mental health, where they are now serving over 120 corporate clients and also supporting 500,000 employees. So today I'll be discussing with Azran on how to prevent burnout, depression, and anxiety during your entrepreneur journey. Especially, this is a very interesting topic, especially for entrepreneurs, and also how do you build like a resilience. So welcome to the show, Azran.
Thank you for having me, Ben. I look forward to this discussion.
All right, so let's begin. So mental health is still like a very taboo topic in Asia and definitely in Malaysia. So do you think entrepreneurs specifically are like more prone to burnout and also depression as compared to, say, like the general population?
Well, indeed, it's still a taboo, but we've made a lot of inroads since COVID, where COVID has brought the issue of mental health and well-being front and center. A lot of people now are talking openly about it. Now, specifically with founders, both some of the global research as well as the work that we do quantify the prevalence rate for depression among founders at over 30% more than the general population. So it is indeed a real issue, to the point where clinical psychologists have even coined the term founder depression to specifically talk about, the condition of depression amongst entrepreneurs and founders.
Well, 30% more, which is quite high. So what are some common signs and also symptoms of like a burnout? Like, how do you identify this? And also, like, how is normal stress different from like more serious stress like
Okay.
burnout?
Well, maybe to make it simpler and practical, I want to talk about 6 early signs and indicators, right? Number one, a lot of fatigue and soreness, right? You're experiencing it, especially in your neck, your lower back. You're constantly feeling those muscle tightness and fatigue and soreness. Number two, sleep, right? Either insomnia, inability to fall asleep, hypersomnia, sometimes too much sleep, like more than 10 hours a day, 4 or 5 days in a row, or continuously waking up multiple times in the middle of the night. Number three, appetite disruption, right? Either loss of appetite or sudden cravings for a lot of sugary and salty foods. That's also an indicator. Number four, physical symptoms of fever, sickness, dizziness. Number five, mood swings, being quickly irritable and highly agitated. And number six, disengagement, right? I've just got to stop responding. I'm, under delivering. I'm not delivering as per my kind of obligations or promises. Now, anyone who says they've never experienced any of these 6 symptoms is a robot. So all of these 6 symptoms, it's about being human, right? But there's a difference between regular kind of feeling depressed and feeling anxious to when it becomes a chronic or a clinical condition. Number one, the duration of it. So if most of us feel it for a day or two, and after that we kind of recover and bounce back, that is normal, right? We can feel depressed for a day or two. Where it becomes serious is if it prolongs for a week or 2 or even more. Number two, over time, the symptoms and the number of those symptoms among those 6 categories intensifies or worsens. So instead of getting better after 2 or 3 days, it actually gets worse and more intense. And number three, it clearly affects our ability to do day-to-day work tasks or personal chores at home, right? So when you see these three things over that period of time, that's where it's moving from regular normal depression and anxiety to an unhealthy clinical level where professional care and attention is needed.
Right. Just like you mentioned that there are like six categories, right? So like I'm sure that out of six, probably people would have gotten maybe like one or two or even three, right? So
Mm.
how many do you need to meet before you classify it as like really serious? Do you like to meet all six, or is it what?
Well, one of the things we would probably discourage is to try to self-diagnose, right? It's a bit like
Mm,
telling, you know, I've got high blood sugar and I've got a headache. Let me Google and see what symptoms of that, right? So diagnosis does require, a trained discipline.
mm,
So if for any reason that it sounds like, you know, you may be feeling, multiple of these symptoms over a period of time and you can see your performance being affected, reach out, right? I mean, we offer a free 24/7 helpline, both on WhatsApp and mobile phone, to talk to a professional so that they can help you better assess this, right? Or make an appointment to see someone. I think that's where part of the destigmatizing of the taboo is to actually go and talk to a professional. And I suppose I'll start first by saying, as a founder, I've been through periods of, depression, especially in 2018. Um, I've had panic and anxiety attacks. I know what that feels like, and it's okay, right? Like just like if we are feeling we've got high blood pressure or high cholesterol or diabetes, doesn't make us any incapable to do what we do, but it just means it needs attention.
mm. So for the entrepreneurs that are already facing burnout, what are some ways that they can overcome it?
Sure. Well, it's again, the number one point is reach out and get help, right? Probably if there's one thing I would encourage founders to focus on is sleep. Sleep's main function is actually not like to increase energy levels or to give our body rest. Because if you think about it, if energy comes from food and the calories that we consume, right? So if you really want more energy, eat more, right? But sometimes eating more makes you sleepy. So it clearly isn't about kind of simply increasing energy, or our body can heal and get stronger by resting. You don't need to fall asleep. So sleep's function is actually not so much for the body becoming kind of improving itself. The main function is brain health, right? Moods, cognition, focus, concentration, right? Optimism, the ability to look at the glass half full. This is all about our mental agility and mental strength and fitness. So if that is the main purpose of sleep, the first thing we can do is really, get back to routines, right? Like, the best thing we can do with sleep is just fall back into routine, going to bed the same time of the day, waking up the same time of the day, right? Because if you can start to take control of sleep, you have a much better chance of improving not just mental health, but also longevity.
Mm. And like how many hours is is the
Okay,
optimal?
while I mean hours, generally we all know it's about 7 to 9 hours, but more important than number of hours is the quality of sleep, right? And specifically whether we can get 75 to 90 minutes of deep sleep in that period of about 7.5 hours, right? And you're not going to get it in one bout. Maybe it's sort of 15 minutes in one sleep cycle, then another 15, then another 20 minutes, right? And this is why sometimes, for example, people might resort to drinking alcohol or taking sleep supplements to fall asleep, but they have a tendency to make you fall asleep but keep you in a very light state of sleep. And so you don't have the ability to fall into deep sleep. In deep sleep is when there are these glial cells in our brain. It's part of our glymphatic system. Their job is to literally prune away anxious thoughts of the future, depressive thoughts of the past, the messiness of our thoughts in our heads. That is why with good night's sleep, you wake up clear headed. Just
Mm,
like our physical body, in our liver, in our kidneys, is the lymphatic system, right? To weed out a lot of the toxins in
mm,
our body. The brain is same thing, right? The lymphatic system. And that's why you want to be able to get sleep so that the glial cells can prune away those anxious and depressive thoughts.
I mean, because entrepreneurs is like, as you always thought, like you need to like work like 24 hours a day. You need to like work very late and then wake up early. Like,
Mm,
yeah, that's like not the recommended way, right? Because then you tend to fall into depression easier because you have lack of
sure.
sleep. Okay.
Exactly. Now, if you think about it, let's draw parallels because there are indeed parallels between mental fitness and resilience and physical strength and fitness, right? Now, if you're a professional athlete, right, you make money from your physical performance, right? Whether you're a football player, a weightlifter, right, a marathon runner, all of them know that they need to achieve peak performance at certain points of competition, and then they've got to be able to rest and recover. Same thing with founders and business leaders. There are times when we run our business when we need to be at our peak performance, when we're pitching to investors, when we're rallying our teams, when we're trying to close a deal with business partners. But you cannot be at 100% level 24/7. If you do that, you become mentally fatigued and drained. And you don't know it, but then it'll take you 4 hours to get a task done that will only take you 1 hour if your mind is clear, you're rested, and your ability to focus and concentrate. So this
Mm,
idea that you need to keep working, working, working late nights, wake up early means you are working at a state where the mind is depleted, it is exhausted, it takes you longer to get work done. So
mm,
actually, you're working much more inefficiently, and it just the vicious cycle worsens, right? So taking breaks, whether it's micro breaks like 2 minutes every 30 minutes, to 1 day every week, to 3 4 days every month, to 2 weeks every year, allows the brain and the body to reset and you bounce back stronger. So you need
mm,
periods of rest and recharge.
mm. Okay. I mean, there's one interesting question about sleep, right? It's like, is it better to sleep like 12 to 8, or can you also sleep like say 2 a.m. and you wake up at 10 a.m., because being
Mm,
entrepreneur you have your like time freedom or what,
sure.
right? Yeah.
So we know we're still learning a lot about the science of sleep, but we also know that humans have different genetic variants, right? And some
Mm,
of us have a genetic predisposition to be early risers, and some of us have a genetic predisposition to be late night owls, right? So genetically, we're wired differently. And the best way to know that is we all have a feeling which time of day that we are naturally at our highest point of energy. For some people, they're early morning people. They get the best work done early in the morning. By the afternoon, they're going to get exhausted. By the evening, their brain's fried, right? And some people are the complete opposite. So the key thing is to recognize what type are you and take advantage of that, right? To get your best work done. As entrepreneurs, let's face it, the reality is the things that we do, it's only about 2 to 3 hours of focused, concentrated work a day that matters. Everything
mm,
else is busy work, right? Like expense claims or tax filings. You do it when you're already mentally exhausted. It's just kind of, low brain power type work, right? But it's the 2 to 3 hours of focus, concentration, quality work that make all the difference to your business. If you've got to do everything, then something is wrong. You're not delegating. You're not thinking about scaling your business. You're trying to put everything on your shoulders, and your business will always remain small because we are always the single biggest constraint to growth for our companies.
mm. Okay. So that's for sleep. But what about seeing an actual psychologist and also therapist? Like, for entrepreneurs who have not seen any psychologist or therapist, what can they expect when they have this session?
Exactly. So, number one, that's a good point, right? It is no different than seeing a coach. If you want to, be able to deadlift 2 times your weight or be able to run a marathon under 4 hours,
Right.
both of these feats you really can't do on your own, right? Because you don't know how
Mm,
to train for strength or train for endurance. But a coach can guide you, can say, first understand where your state is today. What are the things that you can do this week? Creating that accountability, right? So, for example, right, a lot of us actually will know what is healthy and unhealthy. We know we need to sleep. We know we need to eat healthier proteins and less nasi lemak, for example, right? We know we need to exercise, but many of us don't because no one is holding us accountable, especially when you're an entrepreneur. No one is checking
Mm.
on you. But if you're now, investing in having a coach, a therapist, um, someone who's guiding you and saying, okay, let's next week, when in 2 weeks, let's talk about your progress.
Mm.
They start to hold you accountable, because if you don't do anything, you're like, oh man, I don't want to go see my therapist for the next session and say I had zero progress.
Mm.
That's the same reason why investors have or set up board of directors meetings in companies, right? So that they're checkpoints. So the CEO can't just say, I'm taking all your money as an investor and I'll tell you whenever I've sold the business. No, we
Mm.
need to meet either quarterly or every other month and look at your progress, review, and make tactical adjustments. That's the same exact principle with a therapist. Someone who will be both your accountability buddy, your support system, and safe space. You can tell your problems. They're not going to judge you. They're not your investor. They're not your board member. They're not your employee. And they'll give you ideas on some of the actions that you can take today or tomorrow, or help you problem solve, right? You might
Mm.
say, I'm really struggling with sleep, right? Every time at 11 p.m., I want to fall asleep and I can't. And next thing you know, it's already 2 a.m. and I've been scrolling Facebook.
Yeah.
Now, a psychologist might say, well, okay, look, don't worry about what time you fall asleep. Let's focus for the next 1 week on waking up at the same time each day. No matter what time you fall asleep, let's wake up at 7 a.m. Let's do that. Can you do that? And let's review your progress next week. That's a specific example of how a health coach or a therapist can help you change the behaviors and get you on the right track.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I think it really makes sense. All right. So the next thing is, what are some methods for entrepreneurs to develop like a strong mental resilience to prevent these issues?
Sure. So, we've created a program, kind of like an online e-learning program based on the resilience framework that we call THINK, THINK, right? What does
Mm-hmm.
it stand for? T for taking control. I'll come back to that. H for hopeful outlook. I for informed actions. N to nurture ourselves. And K, knowing our goal. So T means there's so many things I cannot control. Focus on what you can control. You cannot control whether an investor agrees to invest with you, but you can control how many investors you reach out to see if you can get a meeting to pitch. Focus
Mm.
on what you can control. H, hopeful outlook. Unleash the power of visualization. Our brains are naturally wired for worst case scenario. Oh, this is going to fail. The investors are going to reject me. So you got to train the brain to say, no, I'm going to start visualizing what does success look like. Building optimism as a mental muscle. I, informed actions. That means, how do I respond rather than react? Right? When someone criticizes us, right? A potential client rejects us, a potential investor rejects us. Our first reaction may either be defensive. We try to argue them again. Oh, you don't understand. My business is actually good. Or you think, I'm lousy, I'm terrible, right? Both extremes aren't really healthy. Informed actions means, how do we apply curiosity? If you don't like investing in us, can you tell me more? What else would you want to see that would have changed your decision? And then take that learning and refine your pitch for the next time around.
Mm.
When my co-founders and I launched iFlips, the first round, 115 investors rejected us before investor number 116 said yes. So the resilience part is, it's not 115 of the same pitches, but to be curious when someone rejects you, to not get defensive and say, what can I learn from this experience and change my pitch the next time? And how do I nurture myself so that I can withstand stress and pressure? That stress and pressure will come, but it's about learning the power of mindfulness and focus exercising, sleeping, exercising, eating healthy, because I need my body to withstand that pressure,
Mm.
right? And finally, K, knowing your goals. And here, I would advocate focusing on behavior goals rather than outcome goals. Many people think of outcome goals, right? Like, I need to raise this amount of money. I need to
Mm.
lose weight. I need to save enough for down payment. Those are
Mm.
outcomes. But that's also why most New Year resolutions fail by February or March. Instead, founders should focus on behavior goals. What am I doing today? What am I doing this week? Right? It's the behaviors that we do which will shape the outcome. So being clear about what those behavior goals are, and having a process where you reflect, how am I on track or not? What do I need to change to get back on track with my goals? THINK is a good framework for entrepreneurs to build resilience.
Yep. So I mean, like an example is like the New Year resolution goal that is like the most popular is lose 10 kg or lose 20 kg. So instead of focusing on lose 10 kg, your behavioral goals can be like exercise 4 to 5 times per week. So that would be like your goal, which you have to tick off instead of just keep on focusing on the 10 kg.
Exactly. Now, Ben, here's the thing. What if I told you you should exercise every day? Now, most founders go, "We got time." But what if I said on
Yeah.
busy days, do 1 minute? 1 minute, because you're not going to get healthy or unhealthy by missing 1 or 2 days. But if you set the goal, say 4 times a week, and every exercise must be 1 hour, it's so easy for, oh, meeting came or client or technical problem. I skip exercise soon and don't exercise at all. But if you learn the discipline of 1 minute, which means no matter how busy that day is, I'll just do 1 minute of squats, 1 minute of going up and down stairs, right? 1 minute of push ups. And then for that day, check. I completed my
Mm.
task. So you never are not exercising, and your identity becomes, I'm someone who exercises frequently. Even though as a founder I'm so busy, 5 out of those 7 days it's only 1 minute, but only 2 days I'm able to do a 30-minute jog or walk, or another 30-minute, playing football with my friends. But it's not 2 days a week, it's every day. That's a big mental reframe, right? To say exercise regularly, and
Mm.
1 minute makes a huge difference versus zero.
Yeah. So how's like just curious, how's your morning routine like? Do you incorporate exercise straight away in your morning routine before you go to work, or how?
So I'm a big believer in morning routines. My morning routines usually start at about 6 o'clock in the morning with hot glass of water with either lemon or lime and a little bit of Himalayan rock salt.
Mm.
Why? I used to grow up drinking Milo, but turns out it's full of sugar, right? See, the thing about bad habits is it's hard to just stop a bad habit. But if you can replace the bad habit with a similar habit that has less impact. So I get the same sense of, I need a warm beverage, I need to do something to prepare it. But instead of drinking sugar, I'm drinking water with lemon and a little bit of salt. It gives me time to kind of decompress. The most important thing is I do not touch my phone first thing in the morning until I've spent, that half an hour of just sitting, sipping water, thinking my day, and then, but probably for me, 6 days a week, I do exercise. I run, I bike, I swim, I go to the gym. And some days it's 5 minutes, some days it's 2 hours. But it's the regularity of it, right? And it gives me the energy that I need for the day. Now, I'm a morning person genetically. So I get a lot of energy in the morning. And therefore, most of my work is done in the morning. By the afternoon, I save afternoons for like maybe internal meetings, admin stuff that don't require a lot of brain power.
Mm. So 6 a.m. you'll be up. What time do you go to bed? 10,
About 11.
11? Okay, right. So there are so few startups and also like entrepreneurs in Malaysia, right? Like because there's like the fear of failure and also the stress that comes with running the business. So what are some advice that you give to a person who's thinking about transitioning from
Mm.
employee to entrepreneur?
Okay. So the my advice would be very similar to also another component of building resilience. Part of nurturing ourselves is nurturing our network, our support network. There are people in our lives that are positive for us, right? You feel more energetic after you spend time with them. And there are people in our lives that drain you of energy, right? Like you get so mentally exhausted after like even 15 minutes with them. So part of being mentally resilient is being deliberate about spending more time with people who energize you and less time with people who drain you. Same thing with starting a business. I would highly recommend not being a solo founder, but finding your co-founder team, right? And that these people need to be people that you feel energized spending time with them, right? Like even after 3 hours talking to them, you actually are brimming with ideas and you're like so pumped, ready to go out, versus 20 minutes and you're like, oh man, this person is so exhausting, right? Finding that right founding team to me is so crucial to really be able to make that step towards being an entrepreneur, because it is a scary, high pressure journey, right? It can be extremely draining. And so when I'm down, I need my co founders to pick me up, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think there's studies that shows that if you have a co-founder, your chances of succeeding will be much higher as compared to solo founders, right? Okay.
Exactly, indeed.
Yeah, and also if you want to raise funds, if the investors see that you're a solo founder, the chances of them giving you funds is also like much lower already compared to that
Exactly,
you have a co-founder.
indeed.
Okay,
For
right,
this reason.
makes sense. So the next one is for entrepreneurs who have already succeeded in like finding a
Mhm.
product market fit. They have existing happy customers, but going to the next level and sort of like scaling the business would
Mhm.
likely result in like a totally different level, a different stress level because you need to hire more people versus yourself and your co-founder at the start. So, what is your advice for entrepreneurs at this current stage?
Sure. Well, that's what makes it fun, right? Like we love the challenge, we love the complexity, and we dive in, right? So to me, again, when I think about expanding into markets like Indonesia and Thailand and Philippines and Singapore, first your network, right? Trying to go into new market cold is tough. It's scary, and you could lose a lot of money, right? But you'll be surprised the power of unleashing networks and many there are many founder networks where you can connect and network with other founders or asking your investors for warm leads and introductions so that you go into a market knowing that at least you have one or two reference clients. So in our case, for example, Naluri, right, when we go to Indonesia, the first one or two clients are actually our Malaysian clients with Indonesian operations so that we can help their
Mm,
employees there, right? That means we're not starting from scratch. It's not pure greenfield. It improves our odds of making that new market work. So again, a big believer in tapping into networks. And sometimes a 20-year-old founder out of Malaysia might think, I don't know anyone in Indonesia. You may not know anyone in Indonesia, but you're probably only 1 or 2 degrees separated from someone who does, right?
mm.
So find someone who might be able to give you a warm lead and introduction to the relevant person in Indonesia and capitalize on that, right? That's the power of networking.
Yeah. So I guess maybe like the the advice would be like go for more networking events because through there you might find your next co-founder there as well, right? And also
Indeed,
your next lead.
absolutely, for
Hmm.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So we are at the end of the show. So before we go, is there anything else that you would like to share with us, Azran?
Wow. So maybe the one last thing is, one thing about our founders is how do we take care of ourselves, right? Noticing the signs and symptoms, reaching out for help, either professional help or other founders who can relate and connect with it. I think the other thing that's also important as founders is for us as leaders to take care of our teams. And here I want to introduce another acronym, CARE, CARE. C
Hmm.
for checking for signs or symptoms, right? The 6 symptoms we talked about earlier, look out for it with your team members because they're not going to come to you and say, boss, I'm really, I've not been sleeping, I'm not eating healthily, I'm really disengaged. But you can spot the signs, watch for those, right? A is actively listen. Sometimes as founders, we're quick to want to just solve the problem. Oh, you got that problem? Here, go do this, fix the problem. Actually, it's not about fixing the problem, but just to actively listen. Sounds like you're going through that. And affirmation, meaning I can understand why you're feeling that way without judgment and without necessarily trying to fix it. R is to reassure that support is available. What can I do as your team leader to support you? And then E, ensure that that support is taken up because 80% of the time in our circles, people will say, yeah, yeah, okay, okay, I'll improve my sleep. But they don't do anything about it. So our job is to follow through. Just like we want to make sure our marketing team doesn't just stop at a marketing plan, but actually executes the strategy, right? Our operations team does the same. Same thing with our employees' health. Will they actually follow through and work on improving their health? And I think that's an important role because if we can role model to our employees that we think health is a competitive advantage, we're more energetic when we take care of ourselves, and that means better business performance, our team members will live it, right? But if we don't role model it, they think, oh, it's not acceptable to take a day off, for example, right?
Yeah. I mean, if your employees have enough sleep and also their mood is better, their productivity will increase, and definitely you will find that your business profit will or sales will also increase as a result.
Exactly.
All right. Great episode. And also thanks Azran for coming onto the show. Check out Naluri down below, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for having me, Ben.